Hello, hello, hello. God bless you and welcome to another podcast, A Simplistic Word with Elder Dwight Kenneth Kirk. God bless you, everyone, and welcome to another podcast. On today, what we will discuss is affirmations. Today, we will discuss affirmations. Now, the reason that we will discuss affirmations is we have to. I'm going to continue where I was last week when I said when you have a problem and you want a solution, you have to recognize the problem. Now, when we talk about affirmations, let me give you the number one that we all had before we get on to talking about the building for business, aka the church. I pledge allegiance to the flag. Was it the United States of America? I ain't done that in so long because I stopped doing it in elementary. Stopped putting my hand up. I stood, but that was about it. That is an affirmation. When we talk about the building for business, a lot of, I know the smaller black churches, they were big on affirmations because you had to, when you would leave, you would say that affirmation together as, as the church on a whole, and it's like it brought unity because the affirmation would usually be a scripture. Let me give you the definition of affirmation. The action or process of affirming something or being affirmed. Proclamation, oath, pledge. We're going to stay with oath and pledge. Because remember I said I pledge allegiance. When we are in the building for business, we don't understand that. And I was under a ministry at the time. Before you would eat, you had to say a scripture. Because that was given, that was letting the human being, the pastor that we think is the closest thing to God that we have, is finding out to make sure that you're studying. But if I'm not mistaken, when I'm supposed to study, I'm supposed to show myself approved unto God, right? But see, that changed. That changed because of affirmations and a pledge of allegiance to the building and not to God. We have to get a better understanding of exactly what's going on, and I will use this as an example. What's that? People magazine on the ID channel, they did a thing on the cults. And I always tell people that go to church 24 hours a day, they think church, if they miss church, the devil's going to jump on them. I always advise them to look at those cults because a lot of those leaders are just like your pastors, and I disrespect you all. Okay, I'm gonna. Y'all have heard me before. They are good pastors, and I'm not saying anything bad about the good ones, but tradition. With tradition, I have to be disrespectful to the tradition. We have to understand that for you to truly be a part of that building for business, you have to be taught. See, we're under the impression that we're being taught to have a relationship with God. No, we're being taught to have a relationship with the building for business that the Pope is over. But I would like for y'all to get a clearer understanding. I've said to you on many occasions, I said, this is supposed to be spiritual, but it just entails a lot of physical. This isn't Paul's time or the disciples' time. It's 2018. Why That's so much physical labor. If you can understand what I'm saying, it really gets me how they use that scripture. What's that? Old Testament. How is it that how do you take care of your house, but you let my house go? So they throw that on you, and now everybody's jumped up and cleaning the church because we are under the impression that God is there. We are not understanding that there is a problem here. And I've said this before: politics, religion, building for business. These are all things that need to be moved out of the ways for us to move forward. If it has never worked, please stop believing that it's going to work. Oh, Elder Kirk, you're saying Jesus not coming. I never said that. You believe more in the building for business than you do the Father and His Son. The only thing you're believing in is the pastor. You're believing, oh, we get together, we become one. Understand this, y'all. Because of the differences that we have in the way that the building for business goes now, there's nowhere in there that, like my wife said, there's no such thing as membership. See, we believe more in this man-made system than we do the Father in heaven, because what they've done was they incorporated it. They put the word in with man, and that's why you have to go to Bible study, because then that's how the pastor gets you to believe that I am the closest thing to God you have. It's funny when you hear people from the building for business talk about cults, and they are in cults themselves. One thing last night, as I was laying there, and God was really explaining a whole lot to me, so I could, begin to understand more of where I was at the time. In leadership, that's why with leadership, they have to be taught differently. Leadership has to be put to the side because, and when I mean put to the side, we used to go to the back, and certain times on Sunday mornings we went to the back because leadership, the pastor would give the leadership one-on-one, but that was for the leadership to be able to convey to the people in the church that this is the direction that we're going in. Now, I know you're saying, well, Elder Kirk, that sounds about right. And remember what I told you before. We start talking about money, and we it starts out with the scriptures, but then it starts, this is due, that is due. Now, I said this to you before. I'll say it again and again and again and again. Let's stop acting like this is about God and Jesus, and we need to say, okay, these are the things that we need to pay. Let's take care of this. But stop trying to act like, oh, if you pay your 10%, this old school law that doesn't even apply to us. Now, please understand this, and I've said this before, and this is for the rebuttal of, well, I pay my tithes, and I give my offering, and God has blessed me, and God, you're blessed because you got a raise. You were blessed because your time had come. I've said this on many occasions. I said that you go to church at the end of the year because it seems that every year there's a new word. Now, I'm not talking about the people with money that don't have to worry about. You understand what I'm saying? The people that they don't worry about that. See, I'm not talking to them that don't have to, that their car payment's automatic. They getting all that taken out of the bank account. It's all good. There is no problem. But it's different for them ones that go from bank draft to bank draft. You hear a new word, you jump and you shout and you holler to the top of your lungs. Your head hurts. And you say, God, I know you're going to do it. And what happens? Pastor, I need help with my electric bill. They take a deep breath, say, good Lord. Come on now. It's the same cycle. I need you to understand something, and please accept my offense. Not everyone that sits in the building for business is always sitting there and prosper. Hmm? Everyone that's sitting in the building for business, some of them have already came in doing six figures. What do they really need? See, Elder Kirk, you getting it twisted. You're not being on points. And then, okay, let me get you to understand this. If there's no problem with your finances, and you come to the building for business, guess what happens when you do have that? The pastor has need, and they need some assistance. Huh? Say what? I continue to tell you this is where Elder Kirk was. So I understand. If you are good, please, I'm not for you, turn me off. But for a person that has been sitting in the building for business for all of these years and it never works out, you need to start asking some questions. And it doesn't necessarily mean, okay, let me help. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're the one that's wrong or they're the ones that's wrong. You're not listening to God. If this is not the place for you to be, then you're not supposed to be there. But I seen a Facebook post. If things are not working out, maybe you're not being a good member and you need to line up with the ministry. Are you following me? Which keeps you in bondage even longer. I have not left affirmations. The affirmations is what keeps you there. That's why you do Malachi all the time. If I have to make sure that you continuously, the more you say it, guess what? The more you believe. If y'all have been following me these past 4 years, I've said to my daughter many times, if I say something to you so many times, guess what? You're going to believe it. My wife and I were looking at yesterday on ID channel, and the guy's father was he was a racist, and he just twisted the Bible to teach them what he wanted to know. And there was a black man that came to this Caucasian man, and he said it took him 2 years to let his father's teachings go. 2 years. That's why people don't understand when I say, how can Elder Kirk get a person to break the chains and the bondage of the building for business if you've been doing it for about 20 or 30 years now? And it's not that I'm giving up on you. It's just that, how can I prove it? You've seen it. People have left the building for business. People no longer go back. And don't mean that they're not going to hell. They have talked to you. They've told you this is what it is. But guess what happens? As long as you go back to the pastor and tell the pastor will give you scripture to show you that that's where you're supposed to stay. And guess what happens? Like an affirmation, I need you to pray this prayer because they're trying to use the devil on you. And I need to make sure that you get back here, and I'm going to be real. Make sure you pay them tithes and offering. They're not going to say this because that electric bill is due, and I got to pay for my stuff, baby. I've given you my heavenly. Am I not worthy of your earthly? Affirmations are what is used to enforce the brainwash. Now, we love God, don't get me wrong. And I think they say, what's that thing they always say? if there's a ever on a movie and there's a creation